6:47 a.m., May 29th, 2026. Scottsdale, Arizona. 14 Secret Service agents moved in 2 columns toward a residential property on East Camelback Road. No sirens, no lights, vehicles dark. Total funds under investigation, $61 million. The house belonged to Derek Sousa, 44, a registered financial consultant with a prior federal conviction for wire fraud in 2019. On paper, he had rebuilt his life. He ran 2 LLCs out of a home office, consulted for digital payment platforms, and had not triggered a single federal flag in 3 years. What he had actually been doing was something else. Between January and May of 2026, Sousa and an associate named Carla Venn, 39, had operated as the beneficial owners of a payment aggregation company called GivePath Solutions, a company that processed donations for 9 fraudulent nonprofit organizations spread across 11 states. Those nonprofits had names that sounded legitimate in early 2026. Hormuz Families First, Sailors Relief Coalition, Naval Conflict Aid Network, Straight Families Fund, Operation Seabridge Relief. Each had a professionally built donor-facing website. Each had a registered 501c3 tax exemption. Each had launched between January 15th and February 3rd, 2026, in the weeks immediately following the U.S. Navy's imposition of a maritime blockade on Iranian ports. Combined, those 9 organizations collected $61 million from approximately 340,000 donors across the United States. Of that $61 million, less than $1, $9 million, just over 3%, went to anything that could be described as a beneficiary. The remaining $59 plus million moved through cryptocurrency exchanges, shell company accounts, and direct real estate transactions. At 6:47 a.m., Sousa was still asleep. May 29th, 2026 was the convergence point of an investigation that had started 4 months earlier with a single anomaly noticed by a financial crimes analyst named Priya Harland, stationed at the Secret Service's Financial Crimes Division in Washington, D.C. Harland was not looking for charity fraud when she found it. She was reviewing a flagged transaction cluster tied to a Reno, Nevada registered agent address, a routine follow-up on a dormant lead from an earlier case. The address was 447 North Wells Avenue, Suite 12, Reno, Nevada. It appeared in 3 separate nonprofit registration filings submitted to the IRS between January 17th and January 29th, 2026. The nonprofits were Hormuz Families First, Sailors Relief Coalition, and the Naval Conflict Aid Network. The address had appeared before. In a 2024 pandemic relief fraud case, that same Suite 12 had served as the registered agent address for 2 shell LLCs that received approximately $2, $3 million in fraudulent small business administration loans. Those LLCs were dissolved after the fraud was discovered. The registered agent who listed that address in 2024 had used a false identity. Harland flagged the repetition. It wasn't conclusive. Registered agent addresses get reused. Nevada has an entire industry built around that. But the timing was notable. The reuse was exact. Same suite number, same address. And the entities using it in 2026 were all nonprofits that launched in the same 3-week window, all in a sector, Naval Conflict Relief, that had emerged as a fundraising opportunity in January 2026 when the blockade was announced. Harland pulled the IRS exemption filings for all 3 organizations. Each listed a different executive director, a different board of directors, a different operational address. But all 3 filings had been submitted using the same IP address, a commercial VPN endpoint resolving to a server in Frankfurt, Germany. She escalated to her supervisor. The case was formally opened on February 6th, 2026. I spent time going through the early case file on this one, and one detail kept pulling me back. The people behind this scheme understood exactly how federal charity oversight works and built their operation around its gaps. The nonprofit sector in the United States runs on largely self-reported compliance. The IRS grants 501c3 status based on applications, not audits. A newly formed nonprofit can receive tax-exempt donations for months or years before any agency reviews whether it is actually dispersing funds as stated. Most small nonprofits never get reviewed at all. The fraudsters behind this scheme knew this. They timed their operation to a high-emotion news cycle, a military conflict, that would generate fast donations before any oversight mechanism could catch up. What's most surprising about this case isn't the scale of the fraud. It's how many structural vulnerabilities it exposed at once. IRS criminal investigation joined the probe on February 19, 2026, after Harland's team shared its findings. IRS CI Special Agent Thomas Weir, assigned to the Phoenix field office, began tracing the payment flow from the 9 nonprofits through their shared processor, GivePath Solutions. GivePath Solutions was incorporated in Delaware in November 2025. Its registered agent was a law firm in Wilmington. Its beneficial ownership, the actual human beings who controlled the company, had not been publicly disclosed. Under the Corporate Transparency Act, beneficial ownership had to be reported to the Financial Crimes Enforcement Network by January 1st, 2025, for existing companies. GivePath was incorporated after that deadline, giving it a 90-day disclosure window from formation, a February 2026 deadline it had not met. Weir subpoenaed GivePath's banking records through the company's payment processor relationships with 3 major card networks. The financial trail was intricate, but not invisible. GivePath received a percentage fee on every donation processed through its platform, approximately 8% of every transaction, flowing into a GivePath operating account at a regional bank in Phoenix, Arizona. The signatories on that account were 2 individuals, Derek Sousa and Carla Venn. Sousa's prior federal conviction was immediately notable. A 2019 wire fraud case, Eastern District of California, involving a digital marketing scheme that defrauded approximately $800,000 from small business clients. Sousa had served 22 months in federal prison, been released in 2021, and was technically still under supervised release conditions that prohibited him from operating in financial services. He had been violating those conditions since November 2025. Weir contacted Sousa's supervising probation officer. The probation officer had received no disclosure from Sousa about his involvement with GivePath. Sousa had filed routine monthly compliance reports describing himself as a self-employed marketing consultant. He had not mentioned GivePath, the nonprofit clients, or the processing volume, which by February 2026 was already approaching $30 million. The case now had 2 dimensions, the fraud itself and a supervised release violation that could move Sousa back into federal custody independent of any new charges. Venn's background was different. She had no prior federal convictions, but a records check revealed a 2022 civil judgment against her in Maricopa County for a fraudulent investment scheme involving roughly $400,000. She had settled the civil case, paid partial restitution, and had no further legal record. Her connection to Sousa was established through a LinkedIn message exchange obtained through court order. Sousa had recruited Venn in October 2025 with language describing an emerging humanitarian payment processing opportunity. By March 2026, investigators had a clear picture of the 2 principals. What they didn't yet have was the full scope of the network. How many nonprofits, how many states, how many people beyond Sousa and Venn were involved? The answer came from a web developer named Marcus Hale, 31, based in Atlanta, Georgia. Hale had built all 9 nonprofit websites. Investigators identified him through digital fingerprinting of the website code, a specific JavaScript function used across all 9 donor platforms that matched a coding style and library version combination that had appeared in Hale's publicly available GitHub repositories. His GitHub account, under a username he had used for legitimate freelance work since 2018, contained code samples with an identical custom analytics integration. That alone wouldn't hold up in court, but combined with GoDaddy domain registration records showing 2 of the 9 domains registered to an email address associated with Hale's Atlanta business, it was enough for a subpoena. Hale's bank records showed 16 payments from GivePath Solutions between November 2025 and April 2026, totaling $214,000. His personal emails, obtained under court order, contained detailed communications with Sousa about website architecture, donor form design, and the production of fundraising video content. Here's the part that doesn't sit right. Even now, the military families featured in those fundraising videos were stock photo models. The sailor testimonials. Men and women in uniform describing the hardships of deployment, asking for support for their families, were AI-generated audio. Hale had produced the audio using a commercial voice synthesis platform matched to stock footage of naval vessels and sailors purchased from a media licensing service. Approximately 340,000 donors had watched those videos and given money believing they were hearing real people. This wasn't just fraud. It was a fabrication of human suffering deployed against donors responding to a genuine geopolitical crisis. Here's where the investigation shifted from complex to urgent. In early April 2026, IRS, CI, and Secret Service analysts identified the outbound money flows from GivePath. Donation funds were not sitting in the GivePath operating account. They were moving fast, in structured amounts, through a sequence of intermediary steps. Step 1. GivePath transferred incoming donations, net of its processing fee, to 9 separate nonprofit bank accounts across 11 states. This was normal. A legitimate payment processor would do exactly this. Step 2. Within 48 to 72 hours of receipt, each nonprofit account transferred between 85% and 92% of its balance to a series of cryptocurrency exchange accounts. The exchanges used were 3 platforms that accepted institutional transfers from U.S. bank accounts with relatively minimal identity verification for amounts below specific reporting thresholds. Step 3. The cryptocurrency, primarily Bitcoin and Ethereum, moved through a sequence of wallet addresses in a pattern consistent with chain hopping, rapidly shifting assets between different cryptocurrencies to obscure the trail. Forensic blockchain analysis by IRS, CI identified at least 47 intermediate wallet addresses involved in the movement of funds between February and April 2026. Step 4. A portion of the cryptocurrency was converted back to U.S. dollars through peer-to-peer exchange platforms and deposited into accounts held by 2 Nevada LLCs with no apparent business operations. Those LLCs had purchased real estate, a condominium in the Edgewater neighborhood of Miami, Florida, closing in March 2026 for $2, $1 million cash, and a single-family property in the Summerlin area of Las Vegas, Nevada, closing in April 2026 for $1, $7 million cash. Both properties were in the name of the Nevada LLCs. Both LLCs traced back to Sousa through a chain of registered agents and operating agreement documents obtained through subpoena. What do you think? When a scheme this sophisticated runs through 9 organizations, 11 states, and a cryptocurrency laundering layer, is that one unusually capable criminal or a system with too many gaps to close? By late April 2026, investigators estimated approximately $18 million of the laundered funds remained in traceable cryptocurrency wallets. The remainder, roughly $40 million, had either been spent, converted to physical assets not yet identified, or moved into wallet addresses the blockchain analysis had not yet mapped. The investigation had 3 problems to solve before arrests could be made. Problem 1. Sousa and Venn were under surveillance but showed no signs of preparing to flee. However, investigators knew the naval blockade was winding down. News reporting in late April indicated a diplomatic resolution was being negotiated. When the blockade ended, the fundraising justification for the nonprofits would collapse, and there was a risk Sousa and Venn would begin shutting down the operation and liquidating assets before warrants could be executed. Problem 2. Investigators had identified 6 additional individuals beyond Sousa, Venn, and Hale who appeared to play operational roles. Managing the nonprofit bank accounts, interacting with donors, handling compliance paperwork for the fraudulent 501c3 filings. 5 were in Florida and Georgia. 1 was in Nevada. Arresting Sousa and Venn without simultaneously moving on the others created a risk of evidence, destruction, and flight. Problem 3. The cryptocurrency wallets. Any visible law enforcement action against Sousa or Venn would likely cause whoever controlled those wallets to move assets into addresses that couldn't be traced quickly. The solution was simultaneity, something worth saying plainly. The federal framework for monitoring new nonprofits in high-emotion news cycles is not just inadequate, it's effectively an open invitation. This scheme collected $61 million in 4 months, using organizations that a reasonably resourced federal review could have flagged within weeks. The 340,000 donors who lost money here weren't statistical abstractions. Many were people who responded to what they believed was a genuine call to support military families during a real conflict. The failure to have a faster detection mechanism isn't a bureaucratic footnote. It's a policy choice with a $61 million price tag. The Joint Secret Service and IRS CI Task Force working with U.S. attorneys' offices in the District of Arizona, the Southern District of Florida, the Northern District of Georgia, and the District of Nevada spent the first 3 weeks of May 2026 preparing 14 simultaneous search warrants and 8 arrest warrants. The coordination problem was significant. 14 locations across 4 states, 8 individuals to arrest, cryptocurrency wallet addresses to freeze through emergency court orders, all had to move within the same operational window. Prosecutors from the District of Arizona took the lead on the indictment, given that Sousa and Venn were based in Scottsdale. The indictment, filed under seal on May 22, 2026, charged all 8 individuals with conspiracy to commit wire fraud, money laundering conspiracy, and, for Sousa, violation of supervised release conditions. The operational plan was structured around a 6:45 a.m. start time on May 29, 2026. The date was chosen deliberately. May 29th was the morning after major media outlets published reports confirming that the naval blockade on Iranian ports had been formally lifted. The logic was that the blockade's end would pressure Sousa and Venn to begin dissolving the nonprofit infrastructure, and that the 24-hour period immediately following the news would be the point of maximum vulnerability before they could execute an exit strategy. What no one on the investigative team had anticipated was what happened at 5:58 a.m., 47 minutes before the planned entry at the Scottsdale property. One of the arrest teams staged at a hotel 3 miles from Sousa's residence received a call from the U.S. Attorney's Duty Line. A lawyer claiming to represent one of the 6 secondary targets in Florida had contacted the duty attorney at 5:45 a.m., 13 minutes before the operational window, and stated that their client wished to surrender voluntarily and had information material to the investigation. Lead case agent, Secret Service Special Agent Danielle Okafor, had under 10 minutes to decide. The call might be legitimate. A secondary target having a change of heart, offering cooperation. Or it might be an attempt to stall the operation, delay warrant execution, and buy time for evidence destruction. Put yourself in Okafor's position for a second. 14 teams staged across 4 states, 8 targets, coordinated cryptocurrency freezes all timed to the same window, and a lawyer calling with a voluntary surrender offer at 5:45 in the morning. She made the call to proceed. The voluntary surrender was noted, but not allowed to alter the operational timeline. All teams were instructed to execute as planned. At 6:47 a.m., the Scottsdale team made entry. Sousa was found in his bedroom. A laptop on the desk beside him was open and active. Agents preserved it under the terms of the search warrant without allowing Sousa to interact with it. Forensic imaging of the laptop began within 6 minutes of entry. Carla Venn was arrested at her residence in Tempe, Arizona at 6:49 a.m. She said nothing to the arresting agents. Marcus Hale was arrested at his Atlanta apartment at 6:51 a.m. Eastern Time, simultaneous with the Arizona arrests, accounting for the time zone. Hale asked the agents if he could finish making coffee. They said no. The 5 Florida targets were taken into custody at locations in Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and Boca Raton between 6:47 and 6:54 a.m. The Nevada target, the individual who had managed the 2 Las Vegas and Reno registered agent filings, was arrested at a residential address in Henderson at 6:48 a.m. Pacific Time. The lawyer's client, the one who had called at 5:45 a.m. with an offer of voluntary surrender, was one of the Miami targets. She was in custody by 6:50 a.m. regardless. Comment yes or no. Do you think any part of the $40 million in unrecovered funds has already been moved outside the reach of U.S. law enforcement? Simultaneously with the arrests, IRS, CI prosecutors executed emergency asset freeze orders through federal court. The orders targeted the 2 Nevada LLC real estate holdings, the GivePath Solutions operating account, the 9 nonprofit bank accounts, and, through cooperation with the 3 cryptocurrency exchanges involved, the wallet addresses identified through blockchain analysis. The cryptocurrency freeze was partial. Of the approximately $18 million in cryptocurrency wallets identified through forensic analysis, approximately $11, $3 million was successfully frozen within the operational window. The remaining estimated $6, $7 million had been moved, at some point in the 72 hours prior to the operation, to wallet addresses not covered by the court order. Whether this movement was triggered by advanced knowledge of the investigation or was routine operational activity within the scheme was not immediately clear. One detail that stuck with me, that cryptocurrency moved across a 72-hour window before the warrants executed. The May 29th date was chosen because investigators believed it would catch the targets before they started winding down. The asset movement suggests someone in or connected to the scheme may have begun that wind down earlier than anticipated. But investigators publicly stated they had no evidence the investigation's operational security had been compromised. Who moved those wallets, and when exactly the decision was made, was not resolved at the time of the arrests. Search warrant execution at the 14 locations produced substantial physical and digital evidence. At Sousa's Scottsdale property, the active laptop containing what forensic analysts described as an operational dashboard for GivePath, including real-time donation tracking across all 9 nonprofits, a personal cell phone, printed bank statements, and a hard drive containing, according to subsequent filings, records of cryptocurrency wallet, private keys, and exchange account credentials. At Venn's Tempe residence, a second laptop with email archives including communications with the nonprofit bank account managers in Florida, financial spreadsheets, and documents related to the Miami and Las Vegas real estate purchases. At Hale's Atlanta apartment, design files, video editing projects, and the AI voice synthesis platform account credentials used to generate the fake sailor testimonials. The voice synthesis platform, when contacted by investigators, confirmed that Hale's account had generated approximately 23 minutes of audio content between November 2025 and January 2026, audio matching the testimonials used across multiple nonprofit fundraising videos. Sousa and Venn were arraigned in the District of Arizona on June 3, 2026. Both entered not guilty pleas. Both were ordered held without bail on flight risk grounds. Prosecutors presented evidence of a one-way airline ticket to Dubai purchased in Sousa's name for June 15, 2026, found in his email. Sousa's attorney characterized the ticket as a planned business development trip. The magistrate was not persuaded. Hale entered a not guilty plea in the Northern District of Georgia and was released on a $500,000 bond with electronic monitoring. The 5 Florida defendants entered varying pleas across the southern and middle districts of Florida between June 5 and June 12, 2026. 2 had retained the same law firm, which filed motions challenging the search warrant affidavits on Fourth Amendment grounds. As of early July 2026, those motions remained pending. The Nevada defendant, the registered agent who had set up the Reno addresses, entered a cooperation agreement with prosecutors on June 10, 2026, agreeing to plead guilty to 1 count of conspiracy to commit wire fraud in exchange for cooperation. The agreement was sealed. The Miami condominium and Las Vegas property purchased through the Nevada LLCs were placed under federal asset forfeiture proceedings. Combined estimated value, $3, $8 million. Both remained in legal limbo as of July 2026, with the forfeiture proceedings contested by the LLC entity's nominal managers. Of the $61 million collected, prosecutors stated that approximately $11, $3 million in cryptocurrency had been frozen. The 2 real estate properties totaled $3. $8 million in forfeiture proceedings, and the various bank accounts held a combined balance of approximately $4, $1 million at the time of seizure. Total recoverable assets identified at the time of the operation, roughly $19, $2 million. Approximately $41 million remained unaccounted for, whether in cryptocurrency wallets not yet identified, in physical assets not yet located, or moved offshore through channels not yet mapped. The 340,000 donors who gave to the 9 fraudulent nonprofits were notified by the U.S. Attorney's Office through a public notice posted to the official case website on June 5, 2026. They were directed to submit claims through a victim compensation process. How much of their donations would ultimately be recovered and returned was, as of that date, an open question. The fraudulent fundraising videos remained accessible on social media platforms for several days after the arrests, generating continued donations to now frozen nonprofit accounts before the platforms removed them following contact from federal investigators. The 9 websites were taken offline on May 29th at 7:14 a.m., 27 minutes after the first arrests. The real question here isn't whether Sousa and Venn will be convicted. The documentary evidence is substantial. It's what 9 months of this scheme's operation reveal about the infrastructure that was supposed to prevent it. 3 federal agencies with overlapping jurisdiction over nonprofit financial compliance and detection came from a single analyst who happened to recognize a registered agent address from a prior case. There's a line in the indictment that reads almost like a technical specification. Defendants exploited the structural lag between 501c3 application approval and mandatory financial disclosure review, which under current IRS policy does not trigger until an organization's 3rd fiscal year of operation. These organizations were never going to reach their 3rd fiscal year. They were built to collapse, or in this case, to be shut down by someone else. The case against all 8 defendants was ongoing as of July 2026. Trial dates had not been set. The cooperation agreement with the Nevada defendant was sealed. The $6. $7 million in cryptocurrency that moved before the operational window had not been publicly traced. Somewhere in those untraced wallet addresses is the real accounting of this operation, and it is almost certainly more complicated than 9 nonprofits and 8 defendants. A scheme that moved $61 million through 11 states in 4 months, built an AI audio production pipeline, managed 9 separate donor-facing platforms, and coordinated real estate purchases in 2 cities doesn't run on 2 people in Scottsdale and a freelance web developer in Atlanta. Indictments describe what prosecutors can prove. They rarely describe everything that happened. The network is dismantled. The $41 million that can't be traced is somewhere. And the next humanitarian crisis that generates a fundraising news cycle is already being watched by people who studied how this one worked. If you want to see what came before the Scottsdale arrests. The full paper trail that Priya Harlan built between February and May, subscribe. That case file is deeper than what a single video can hold.